Senator from Illinois is recognized.
Are we at a quorum call?
No, we're not.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I'm trying to remember what year it was. It could have been 15 years ago in the Senate when I walked into a hearing chaired by Senator Arlen Specter of Pennsylvania in the Senate Judiciary Committee. I didn't know what the topic of the hearing was, but as a member of the committee, I was curious. So I sat down and listened. And I learned about something that I really wasn't aware of. Testifying were retailers from across the United States talking about something called the swipe fee, the interchange fee. I didn't know what that was. Turns out it is the fee that is paid to the banks that issue credit cards when you engage in a transaction. It's not identified to the ordinary consumer, but the retailer who's using the credit card certainly knows quite a bit about it. It's the fee that he is charged, he, the retailer, is charged for the use of the bank's credit cards. They were complaining, the retailers were, that the terms of the agreement, the interchange fee between Visa and Mastercard, which of course dominate the credit card world, were so opaque that they couldn't even get a copy of the actual contract between Visa, Mastercard, and this retailer sitting at the table. They had a stack of papers in front of them, which was part of the contract and agreement for the interchange fee, but not the complete agreement. They were frustrated because they had no control whatsoever in terms of what Visa and Mastercard were going to charge. I took an interest in it and asked Chairman Specter at the time, is the Senate Judiciary Committee going to do something? He said, of course. The honest answer was no. We had a hearing and that was the end of it. But I took an interest in the issue and decided to offer a study to see what the impact was on small businesses and retailers of these interchange fees and swipe fees charged by the banks that issued Visa and MasterCard. The industry had no interest in any study on any aspect of it and made it clear to me they were going to oppose every effort I had to try to get to understand this issue better by a credible study. I was frustrated by this and decided to make an offer of a change in the law when it came to debit cards. Debit cards are different than credit cards because they're virtually a checking account. You can only charge as much as you have on balance to pay. And the question of credit is not as paramount as it is with the credit cards. So I came to the floor and offered, with Dodd-Frank, the banking reform, an amendment on debit cards, swipe fees, and interchange fees. Just to show you what a different time it was in the United States Senate, this was a bill that was being offered by Senator Dodd in the Senate and a Republican senator as well on a bipartisan basis. I offered this amendment on the floor and got into the queue. I was about the 25th amendment that was considered, and it wasn't approved by the Banking Committee. I was just offering this on the floor. What I was trying to establish was the actual fee that was being charged for debit cards. As I said, I was about the 25th amendment to be offered. It turned out that there were so many controversial amendments in Dodd-Frank that I didn't rise to the top as the most controversial. And so the issue was called, and at the last minute, the chairman of the committee, Senator Dodd, said, of course, that will require 60 votes. His belief was that if he required 60 votes, the Durbin Amendment would go away, would be defeated. Turned out he was wrong. The retailers of America came together in a way they'd never come together before to raise questions about debit cards and the fees that were being charged to them. And the amendment passed with more than 60 votes, to the surprise of this sponsor, as well as the other members of the Senate. And as luck would have it, the House of Representatives decided, Barney Frank in particular, that this issue showed enough support in the Senate not to be part of any meaningful negotiations in conference. And the so-called Durbin Amendment went through. Since then, there have been several efforts on the floor of the Senate over the years to remove the Durbin Amendment on debit cards, where the fee was established with the cooperation of the Federal Reserve, and they have failed. So we have debit card world semi-regulated or somewhat regulated, not so much on the credit card side. Roger Marshall is a colleague of mine, Republican colleague in the Senate today from Kansas. He and I and Peter Welch of Vermont have co-sponsored legislation to extend the coverage of this issue to credit cards. And Senator Marshall and I agreed that whichever of us had the majority party at the time would be the lead sponsor. So it's the Marshall-Durbin-Welch bill today that is considered when we discuss credit cards. I give this lengthy introduction to show you that there's a deep history on this issue, and it continues to this day. And it has particular relevance at this moment for several reasons. Let me explain. Data released this week by the Bureau of Labor Statistics confirms what many in the chamber and we all know from our daily lives. Americans feel every day prices are just too high. Consumer prices, from rent to groceries to utilities and more, are up nearly 3% compared to last year. Affordability is real. It is a concern that supersedes virtually every other political concern with basic American families. And while costs continue to go up and everyday Americans are struggling, big banks are rolling in cash with profit margins around 30%. That's right. Big banks have profit margins in this economy of over 30%. Why are banks making so much money? It's because they profit off of something called a swipe fee, an interchange fee. Every time you use your credit card, Visa or Mastercard, they charge the merchant what is essentially a service fee. The merchant pays a fee of 2 to 3% on each transaction, meaning if you spend $100, the merchant gets $97 or $98. While Visa and Mastercard keep some of the $2 or $3 for themselves, most is pocketed by the big banks that issue the cards. A few bucks here, a few bucks there, and you got yourself a pretty good haul if you're a big bank. How good? In 2024, last year, the year before last, Visa and Mastercard and their big bank partners raked in more than $111 billion in credit card swipe fees. These swipe fees are crushing small businesses and their customers through higher prices. If you don't believe me, listen to what a constituent of mine in Chicago wrote. Rick is his name. He owns a gas station. He pays $50,000 to $60,000 a year in swipe fees. He says, and I quote, "These fees have an impact on pricing in the store." Small business owners like Rick have little recourse. Visa and MasterCard have a near virtual grasp on the credit card network market, controlling about 85% of it. That's right, Visa and MasterCard control 85% of the credit card market. Give you an example of some other businesses that wrote to me in relation to this issue. Credit processing fees are crushing businesses, taking up to 4% for credit card sales. Currently, this individual who wrote to me said 88% of my sales are by credit card. It has become literally the coin of the realm. This individual, Laura, says she owns a coffee shop. My per ticket amounts are low, roughly $5. Yet each transaction can take up to 25 cents in a swipe fee to the credit cards. We need competition in the credit card marketplace, she writes, and options to choose from. Just like small businesses have to compete for customers, credit card companies should have to compete for our business. Laura has a coffee and tea business, as you might guess, in Elmhurst, Illinois. Why are banks making so much money? The swipe fees are virtually unregulated. We'd like to change that. When combined with another source of information from Cesar, Illinois, which is in downstate southern Illinois, Greg Kelly writes me, when combined with basic merchant processing fees and set monthly access fees, credit card fees can add up to nearly 5% of total transactions. Greg writes, this is insane. This prevents hiring and hinders business growth, as well as being able to compete. Credit card reform is needed now. Small business owners like Rick have little recourse. Visa and Mastercard have a virtual death grasp on the credit card network market, controlling about 85% of it. Because of this, Visa and Mastercard are free to set fee rates on credit cards wherever they like. For the retailers, take it or leave it. This allows them to tell small business owners like Rick that they're going to set the standard. He has no negotiating power. There's no competition, unless the Marshall-Durbin-Welsh bill passes. This is not how our system and our economy are supposed to work. It's time we bring back real competition to the credit card industry, the kind that encourages growth and brings about lower prices. This bipartisan bill that I've described to you, the Credit Card Competition Act, was endorsed by President Trump this week. It was kind of a pleasant surprise. I didn't know it was coming. He was unequivocal in supporting it. It would address the outrageous swipe fees that are being charged to retailers. Talk about a hidden cost of business. Every time you use your credit card, if it's for a transaction, for a meal at a restaurant, for a contribution to a charity, the swipe fee is being taken out of it, 5% and more. My bill would require the largest 30 or so banks, only the largest banks, to enable at least 2 credit card networks to be used on credit cards they issue, with at least one being outside the Visa Mastercard duopoly. That would create real competition. The banking industry hates the Marshall, Durbin, Welch Amendment like the devil hates holy water. To them, any kind of regulation is unacceptable. By injecting competition in the credit card market, this bill would help bring down swipe fees that small businesses pay and that ultimately get passed on to America's working families in the form of higher prices. Opponents of my bill have falsely claimed, our bill, have falsely claimed that such provisions would squeeze Visa, MasterCard, and the big banks and force them to scale back reward programs. I learned something recently in the lobbying on this bill. The major airlines all oppose this bill that would limit the swipe fees and the interchange fees. And I was curious as to why the airlines would be so interested in it. It turns out for most of the major airlines, they make more money off their credit cards that they issue than they do off air operations. That's right, more money off the little square of plastic than they do on the actual airplane passengers. So when I go into Reagan National Airport, I'm not surprised that they have banners flashing, stop the Durbin Amendment, stop anything that might affect your frequent flyer plan. You often wonder in an airplane, I pay attention to this and most people don't, when do you get the announcements from the flight attendants about their credit cards? As soon as you reach the point they completed all their safety announcements and told you to buckle up and shut up because we're about to take off, then they announce their credit card program and want you to sign up for it. That's the reality of it. Watch next time you get on an airplane when they do this. Those poor flight attendants are peddling these applications up and down the aisles, trying to get people to sign up for credit cards. The fact of the matter is Visa, MasterCard, and their card issuing banks have plenty of room for reform. In 2024, banks netted about $378 billion in revenue from debit and credit cards, but they paid only $47 billion in rewards. Of course, I value frequent flyer miles like everyone else, but the fact is the program will not even be touched. I'm no mathematician, but I think the big banks have plenty of revenue left to continue offering rewards without hurting their bottom lines. And for those of you who are worried about your airline miles or cash back, an analysis by payments consulting firm CMSPI found that rewards would be reduced by less than 0.1% at most because of the Credit Card Competition Act. So they're crying wolf. This bill has the support of conservative Republican senator from Kansas, Senator Marshall, a liberal Democrat, Peter Welsh, from Vermont, and myself, of course. I urge my Senate colleagues, let's come together and get this done on behalf of consumers and small businesses. You want to do something that really makes a difference to the bottom line debt of families, address the outrageous interest rates being charged on credit cards, and address the swipe fee that's being charged on retailers that's fed into the inflationary aspects of this economy. This is the time to do it if we're going to meaningfully address the real expenses that families face. I urge my colleagues to take a look at this measure, this bipartisan measure, common sense measure that will make a difference on the families that we represent. Mr. President, I yield the floor.